down 31-16. Fourth down, Mariota looking for it all, end zone, touchdown! Deebo Samuel with the silencer.
You know, the big injuries were on offense. The offense really wasn't the problem yesterday, although I did have some thoughts, and I will share them with you, about Cliff Kingsbury's play calling. Good morning, everybody. Max is back. Ben will join us at 12, but the next hour and a half are you and me. 34-27, the final, a loss that drops Washington to 2-2. It is way too early to think anything is the thing. You know, Green Bay was the best defensive team in the league over the first 3 weeks. They gave up 40 last night. The Falcons got beat 30-0 last week and couldn't do anything on offense. They put up 34 and 435 yards yesterday. The NFL, I mean, I don't know how much I need to beat this horse because we've been doing it for years, but it is a puzzle that never, ever gets close to being solved this time of the year. You think a piece fits, but it never does, which is why Atlanta was going to be a difficult game going into it yesterday, despite how horrible that team looked a week ago. Recency bias as an NFL fan or as an NFL bettor or as an NFL pundit is so stupid and dangerous. Maybe in another 4 weeks, it'll probably take another 6 to have any clue as to who's really, really good and who isn't. We still have time. This team still has time. They are 2-2, and they are 2 full games back of the undefeated Eagles at 4-0 in the division. And all of a sudden, there are lots of 2-2 teams, and there's a 1-2-1 team. 2 of them in our conference. By the way, unless they tie with each other, Green Bay and Dallas, you can't have a tiebreaker used when one team has a tie and the other one doesn't at the end of the year. We learned that a few years ago at 8-8-1, or when they were, 7-5-1, and we were trying to figure everything out. That doesn't mean other teams won't have ties. They got to get rid of the tie. Didn't anybody see when they went to 10-minute overtimes and allowed a guaranteed possession for the other team that it increases the chances of a tie, not decreases it? You got to extend overtime to 15 minutes. That's for another day. It's so early. But all we have right now is yesterday's game and the one coming up. And the one coming up may look nothing like yesterday's game. Yesterday's game wasn't as much about our team as it was about their team, in my view. I'm not going to let the defense off the hook. I will not do that. But I talked all week about how this game was a setup the other way. Last week was a setup for our team to pummel the opponent. This week was a setup for the home team, the Falcons. They were so much more capable offensively than they showed last week against Carolina. And because this league is about motivation, it's about, redeeming embarrassment, especially when you have talent, and Atlanta has talent. They were motivated, fired up, prepared, and ready to right the wrong of last week. It's just the way the NFL works. It's been this way for years. It is 100% standalone entities, these games, every single week. And the previous week really is never an indicator, especially early to mid-season. Atlanta needed it, and their best players played like they needed it. The best player on the field yesterday was Bijan Robinson. He is a legit superstar. Drake London is a legit number 1 wide receiver, played like it. Michael Penix Jr. in his seventh start, is a talent. And by the way, clearly resilient after last week. He was outstanding. Their offensive line, outstanding. Their coaching yesterday, outstanding. Everything lined up for them Not to mention the fact Washington was the wounded team coming in without their two best players, Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. Now, the good news is that the news pregame and even during the game and even after the game, it does appear as if Jaden Daniels will return this coming week in LA against the Chargers. The reporting pregame from guys like Rappaport and others said that he was much closer to playing yesterday than he was a week ago, and the expectations are he will return next week in LA when Washington faces the Chargers. And that's important. They're 2-2, and the best player on their team, by miles, hasn't played in the last two games. They won one, they lost one. You know, Marcus Mariota had another good game. Maybe not as good as last week, but he was far from the problem yesterday. He played a solid game, very solid. He's no Jaden Daniels. No, he isn't. This team is a playoff contender, fully healthy with their quarterback. And without him, and especially when they're not healthy, they're not a serious playoff threat. By the way, part of that is because we still don't know anything about this defense, despite so many declarations after the Giant game and after the Raider game last week. I am going to give, when we get to our game take, my game take. We're going to get to the reason more than any other that the game ended with the result it did. And I'm going to tell you, I think it was more about what Atlanta did offensively than what Washington did defensively. But that's not to take Washington's defense off the hook. It wasn't anywhere near good enough to win a game against a team like that in the setup and in the environment that they were in. You know, and it was way too early, way too quick to fire in with, oh, this defense is completely different than last year. You know, chess checkers with the front office, the scheme, everything. No, the Giants and Raiders are not only teams that are flawed offensively, they were hurt when they played Washington. No Andrew Thomas in that opener. He's rather important to the Giant offensive line. And the Raiders' best guard, Powers Jackson, was active but didn't play. So the defense has had two games against less than average offensive teams, and the feeling has been it's improved, it's much better, it might be a really good defense, and it's had two games against average to better than average offenses, not the best offenses in the league, and they have really struggled to the tune of, in two games against the Packers and the Falcons, giving up 61 points and 839 yards. And that's not because the offense is turning the ball over or special teams is giving up field position. That's not the reason. The reason is the defense in the two games it's played against legitimate offensive competition has been torched, run on, thrown on, everything has been an issue. And I'll tell you what, I'm not sure what the problem is. I can identify 5-6 different things from yesterday's game, and they may be similar, but in some cases different from the Green Bay game. But it's still really hard to know whether or not it's scheme, play calling, or talent, players. I got this question yesterday right after the game from Darren. Darren wrote and said, Kevin, do they win the game today, meaning yesterday, with Jaden and Terry healthy? Yeah, I think there's a good chance they would have won that game yesterday. It would have looked like a lot of games last year. You know, defense struggles, but instead of kicking 4 field goals, they end up with another touchdown or two, and they end up winning a close game in the final minute. That's what happened last year. That game was that kind of game. If Jaden's in it, if Terry's in it, they missed Terry too. For those of you that keep saying somebody wrote me last week and very, very sarcastically said Sheehan's got Terry as the 89th best receiver in the game. No, I don't have him that low. I definitely don't have him at the top of the list, though, which is where he and his agent thought that he was. And I think if you watch the rest of the league, you understand that. But he's the best they have, and they miss him. They missed the quarterback more. But yeah, I think absolutely having Jaden Daniels in that game and Terry McLaurin in that game yesterday would have been difference-making, for sure. But they didn't, and they lost the game. Injuries are a reality. They're not an excuse. They happen in the NFL, and they impact results. Terry's injury, more of a concern in terms of how much longer he will miss, and we'll follow that story all week. And we, of course, will follow the Jaden story all week as well, but it looks encouraging based on the reporting. I would assume that today, this afternoon, when Quinn speaks, we might learn more, but if he's smart, he'll play it out until at least Wednesday, when hopefully Jaden is a full go at practice, because they need him. The Chargers are next. The Chargers are coming off a loss to the Giants. Of course they are. It's the NFL. The Giants are 0-3. The Chargers are 3-0. The only thing I'm upset about is that was the game, and I talked about it on Friday, I really wanted to give out, but there was conflicting information from my sources offshore on that game. But it seemed like a smell test special, and I didn't give it out. But another massive winning week for the picks. 10-5-1 going into tonight, where I've got the Bengals plus 7.5. Of course, you have to have the Bengals. Why? Because they lost last week 48-10, just like the Falcons lost last week 30-0. Now, they don't have their starting quarterback. They've got Jake Browning, and they are on the road against a really good team, but still look for them to play well tonight, or much better than they did last week. But the Chargers lose to the Giants. By the way, the Giants lost Malik Neighbors more likely than not to an ACL. The Chargers just faced a defense, and we saw it in week one. The Giants are no joke defensively. No joke at all defensively. They have talent on defense. Jackson Dart threw for like $110 or something like that, rushed for 54 yards. He was a difference maker for them because Russ has been so bad, or was in 2 of the 3 games. But that was, a loss that I'm sure the Chargers didn't see coming. So they're going to be motivated next week to get back on track, especially since the Chiefs have won 2 straight and are starting to look like the Chiefs again as they're starting to get a little healthier. The Chargers are good, but Washington's hungry now, coming off yesterday's loss. They're going to be getting their best player back, hopefully, against the Chargers. This should be a really good football game Sunday. And definitely, I had a very good friend of mine this morning, actually, tell me no chance they can win if they play the way they did yesterday. Of course there's a chance, because they may not play like they did yesterday. They might be completely different next week. And we know this, at quarterback, there's a chance they will be a lot different next week. That's not a criticism of Marcus Mariota. Mariota did a good job, really good job, in the 2 games that he was out. Justin Herbert threw the ball up for grabs. He was pressured and under duress all day. That's going to be a key Sunday. Stopping the run, Omarion Hampton, the running back from North Carolina, had his first major big day, well over 100 yards, like 10-plus yards per carry. They've got receivers, including 97-year-old Keenan Allen back. This is a good team defensively. They get after it. Number 45 for them, the guy that I liked a few years ago out of USC, is an absolute terror. Derwin James is on that team. Bud Dupree's on that team. My guy Tarheeb Still, the Maryland corner, is on that team. They're well coached. We're well coached, I think. On offense, maybe not yesterday. In defense, maybe not. The head coach is outstanding. Should be a good game. The early line on this one is the Chargers at home off that loss are 3-point favorites. 3-point favorites. That is essentially, a line that reflects that if this game were on a neutral field, it would be a push. Although it is in some ways in LA with the Chargers, a neutral field environment. There will be, I promise you, a lot of Redskin fans there. A ton of Washington fans will be at SoFi next week. Looking forward to that, but we can't, bury yesterday. We've got to go back and autopsy yesterday, which was which is exactly what I'll do when we come back. My game take next, probably 20, 25 minutes. You can start lining up on the phones and telling me what you think. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. We are free and live on the Odyssey app. And don't forget, every day you can watch us on our 980 YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and hit the like button when you get there.
That you don't want to waste these opportunities. He's been tense in the past. He's aware of it. Good run. Rodriguez busting it to the outside. Chase down from behind.
Well, that was a nice run. 48 yards. They ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive. Mariota to Luke McCaffrey. I would have loved to have seen Chris Rodriguez get more than 7 carries in the game. I would have loved to have seen old Bill. He is a runner. Love his style of running. I would have loved to have seen him get more than 7 carries in a game. In a game in which, once again, like last 2 weeks ago Thursday night, your defense wasn't going to be a big help. You needed to be a little bit closer in play count and time of possession count. All right, my game take, as always, kind of the things I liked, didn't like, and a few other observations. Again, I want to emphasize this about yesterday's game because I hear it from all my friends. I hear it from my boys. Man, we just can't. We're not good enough. We stink. It's never about the other team. Green Bay was clearly the better team on that night. They rushed 4. They dominated the line of scrimmage. They covered, blanketed everybody. There was really no chance offensively on that given night. Yesterday, Atlanta was really good offensively. Drake London, Penix Jr., Bijan Robinson, that O-line, Algier, they were excellent in that game. Kyle Pitts, Pitts has had an up and down start to his career. There's no doubt about that. There was a lot of, issues with his work ethic, with his blocking, his willingness to block, but there's no doubt he is a legit talent as a receiver. That team has players. The question is, are they going to be kind of up and down with a young quarterback like most teams are with a young quarterback? But, man, I like Penix. Loved him coming out. I know he looked terrible last week, but that's going to happen with rookies. He was outstanding yesterday. But, yeah, run the football a little bit more. I'll hit that when I hit my list of things that I didn't like. But, again, overall, big picture for me, Atlanta won that game more than Washington lost that game. Doesn't mean I'm going to take the defense off the hook. We're Cliff Kingsbury off the hook. I'm not. All right, what did I like? I liked the big play yesterday. There were several of them. That 48-yard run by Rodriguez set up 7. The 58-yard kickoff return by Luke McCaffrey set up 3. They're in the game at halftime, down 17-10, legitimately because of those 2 plays. Basically, you had 106 yards in 2 plays. In the second half, they overcame a 1st and 30, and I'll tell you how they got there when I get to the list of things that I did not like from yesterday's game. They overcame a 1st and 30 by, getting a chunk of it back on 2nd down, and then on 3rd and 14, Mariota scrambles for 22 yards. Big play. The 24-yard touchdown pass to Debo on 4th and 3. Big play. The 25-yard deep shot to Debo on the final drive that drew a defensive pass interference penalty. Big play. The offense, the return game, made big plays, chunk plays in this game. I like that. The defense didn't do its part. The game was winnable. Number 2 on the list of things that I liked, the rush offense. I'm going to get to Kingsbury when I get to the next list. But I always feel like criticizing play calling is dangerous. Even Sonny Jurgensen, the great Sonny Jurgensen, used to say to me all the time, if I criticized play calling and he was listening, or if I did it on the pregame show, he would say, you don't know. You just don't know. You don't know how they practiced it. You don't know what they saw on tape. You just don't. There's too much. He goes, I don't question play calling. It's the one thing I steer clear of, Sonny used to say. But still, I'm going to do it anyway here. Rodriguez, 7 carries, 59 yards. Bill, 7 carries, 47 yards. Those 2 alone, 14 for 106. 7.5 yards per carry. 7.5 yards per carry on 14 carries in total. I mean, Do you really need to know a lot more than that? That every single time, I understand Rodriguez had a big chunk run of 48 yards, and that means his other 6 carries were for 11 yards. I do understand that. I do. Bill was 7 for 47. He had a 16-yard run in there. So if you take out the 16-yarder, then you're at 6 for 31, which, by the way, is still over 5 yards per carry. But you can't do that, because sometimes it's pressing, and then you break one. Although in the Rodriguez case, it was the first time he touched it. I look at 14 for 106, 7.5 yards per carry, and I say, why didn't they get it more? It's not like you were a home run through the air. It's not like you couldn't see that playing cliche complementary football was going to be important because your defense was not going to get off the field on a regular basis. I thought the O-line did a good job. I thought the backs did a great job. In total, the team went 22 for 147. That's 6.7 yards per carry. That includes Debo's carries, McNichols, Chris Moore's 1 run, and Mariota's 2 runs. I think they should have done it more in yesterday's game. I think every game is different, but the context yesterday was you basically got doubled up in the first half on time of possession and on play count. I think running the football would have been the preference. I felt that way against Green Bay, but there were compelling reasons against Green Bay in the second half or after Bates left early in the game not to do it. They just didn't feel like they could. I still would have tried it because the other thing wasn't working. Yeah, Cliff can get pass happy and drop back and pass play happy. And look, some of the pass plays are run extensions. I'd like to see Bill get more than 7 touches. And if pass protection's an issue, get over yourself at this point. He's a good runner. He's a great instinctive feel, vision runner. Rodriguez has some of that too, and then is powerful on top of that. I think these two have to be, more than 7 touch, 7 carry a game guys. At this point, I don't even care which one, although my preference would be Krosky Merritt. I think there's something about his running style that is really like it's not high level, it's not elite level, but it is far higher than average level. I love his instincts as a runner. I think they found something. Yes, needle in a haystack, 7th round running back, but we've seen it now in regular season games that matter. I'd like to see him get more than 7 carries in a game. He had 8, remember, in the opener against the Giants, right? It was 10 for 82 in that game. I mean, what is old Bill averaging now per carry? It's got to be something insane. I didn't even look at this. He's averaging 5.9 yards per carry, okay? He's got 29 carries in 4 games, 29 for 172 yards, 5.9 yards, 2 touchdowns. I don't know. I think that is worthy of more examination from them. I understand that if he's not picking up certain things, pass pro-wise, etc., teach him quickly because he needs to be on the field more. And if Rodriguez has the same issues, teach him, coach him up, get him out onto the field more. Running the football yesterday was definitely something they did very well. Next up on the list of things that I liked, the quarterback. Marcus Mariota had a pretty good encore for last week's main event. I mean, he was really good again. I thought he felt pressure more than he did last week. He had more bad plays than he did last week. I don't think he saw the field as consistently as he did last week, but considering what he had out there with him, he was really good. They were good enough offensively in the game to win the game. It's just the defense couldn't get off the field. He was 16 of 27 for 156 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. I think that interception is likely on him. That safety is there. I don't think he looks him off. I don't think that's the throw you make. He had a ball or 2 dropped in the game too. Let's point that out like last week. He took 2 sacks, but probably escaped another 2. The touchdown pass to McCaffrey I love that throw where he looks, off in a different direction, comes back to McCaffrey. He had a couple of really smart plays, check downs to get into better field goal range on their second drive. Had an excellent throw at the end of the first half to Ertz under pressure. Had a great throw to Lane that got called back. I think it was Sinnott holding. 3rd and 14 scramble, for 22 yards. 4th and 3 touchdown pass to Debo. He did have another intentional grounding. There was another near pick, the kid from Virginia Tech, 0 for Atlanta. He's good. They got some good players on that team. But overall, I thought he played really well again. I thought it was, a B plus, A minus. I mean, maybe it's a B plus because of the interception, and you're approaching, scoring territory. Maybe the intentional grounding. Worst case, B plus, somewhere between A minus and B plus. I'll stick with the B plus, but man, he was close to another A performance yesterday for sure. Also on the list of things that I liked from this game, Debo Samuel. I mean, Debo is really, really valuable to this team, especially with the injuries on offense. Debo, 6 catches, 72 yards. He ran the ball a few times. He was not back on kickoffs yesterday. I think they realized that without Terry, without Noah Brown, he was going to be worked yesterday on offense. And if they had had the ball more, he would have had more targets and more catches and more touches. But they put Lane back there, Jalen Lane back there with McCaffrey on kickoffs. 6 catches, 72 yards. He did fumble, that one, and recovered it himself. He is on pace right now to catch 93 passes on the season, 93 balls, which would be, I think for him, I got to look this up, but has Debo ever caught more than 100 balls in a season? No, not even close. Not even close. He's been just more of a weapon, pass receptions, carries, short yardage stuff. His best season was 77 catches in 2021. He's on pace for 93.5 catches this season. He is super valuable to this team right now, especially with the injuries. Another good game for Debo. I put Luke McCaffrey on the list of things that I liked. How can't you? 58-yard kickoff return, 2 catches, his second touchdown of his career. I'm not sure how the advanced guys will grade him out, but he did have an OPI in the game. I think he missed a block that I recognized, but I don't know. McCaffrey just seems to be a guy that can get open and can make plays with the ball in his hands. I love him as a kickoff returner. We talked about that last week. Had him on the show after the game last week. He is a dangerous kickoff return guy, as is Debo. They've got return guys that can really impact games. His 58-yarder in a 17-7 game was huge. The kickers on the list this week of good. Matt Gay, 4 for 4, including a 52-yarder. He did sail the opening kickoff into the end zone for a touchback. You don't really want those. I know Quinn doesn't want them. I know Larry Izzo, the special teams coach, wants that ball somewhere in the landing zone because they feel like they can cover kicks well enough and at a high enough level that teams aren't going to start on average before the 35-yard line, and they're right. But a good day for the kicker. No kicker worries this week. How about a takeaway? First of the year, Sandra still caught the interception that was thrown right to him. That was really Penix Jr.'s only bad throw, it seemed like, of the day. I mean, it probably wasn't his only bad throw, but he didn't have many. He was trying to layer that over Sandra still in that zone coverage to what would have been a catch, I think, by London. But the first takeaway, 4 games, 1 defensive takeaway. What did we hear all, off-season, preseason? Tackling and, of course, takeaways. They did not tackle well yesterday. More on that coming up. And just 1 takeaway in 4 games is going to be, difficult. The good news is they're not turning the ball over themselves. They did yesterday, although there could have been a lot more turnovers. The ball was on the ground a bunch yesterday. How about some of the hits on special teams? 34. Who's number 34 again? Max, I asked you this before the show.
It was, let me pull back up the roster. 34 was on our team. It was Antonio Hamilton Sr. That's who it was.
That's who it was. He had a big hit. I think that our guy Cahoe had a big hit in the game. They hit on special teams. I'll tell you what, it seemed like every other return for the Falcons on special teams, somebody was laid out on the field yesterday and needed to be carted off. Lastly, on the list of things that I liked from the game, it's hard really to put anybody from the defense on here, but there were some individual plays that stood out defensively. Eddie Goldman's stop on 3rd and 1, towards the end of the first half. That was a huge stop. I don't know why Atlanta didn't go for the 4th and 2, quite honestly, against that defense yesterday. Raheem Morris is not a very impressive in-game head coach, in my opinion. But the Goldman play was a good play. Kinlaw had a TFL. Armstrong had a TFL. Payne had the ball, the play in which he knocked the ball and forced the fumble on Bijan Robinson, which Penix Jr. Recovered. There were some okay plays, but overall it was not a great day for the defense. Who else did I put? Jeremy Reeves running down Bijan Robinson on that swing pass was pretty impressive. Not a great day for the defense. Those are the things that stood out on a positive. Oh, John Baptiste, who got hurt yesterday, the pec injury, could be a serious loss again, another defensive end. I thought he made plays yesterday. I thought 90 stood out in the game yesterday as well. But again, not enough defensively to put on this list as stand out throughout the game. All right, the things that I did not like when we come back, Kevin Sheehan Show, Team 980, theteam980.com.
All right, here's what's happening. It is Misery Monday, September 29th. We start off with the Washington Commanders. They fall 34-27 to the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta quarterback Mike Penix posts a career-high 313 yards and 2 touchdowns. Despite the concessions being so cheap, the Commanders' defense could not buy a stop at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Again, they fall 34-27. We look around the NFC East. The Philadelphia Eagles beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 31-25. The Eagles got off to a scorching hot start and fell off a cliff in the second half, not completing a single pass, but they were able to escape with the win in spite of the Bucs' best effort. The Giants, they get their first win of the season over the LA Chargers, 21-18. Malik Neighbors goes down with what is feared to be an ACL injury that might keep him out for the rest of the year. Jackson Dart, solid debut, but the Giants defense showed up and showed out, forcing 2 picks from quarterback Justin Herbert, and they were certainly the difference in the game. Finally, the Cowboys, they took on the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football in the return of standout pass rusher Micah Parsons. An offensive explosion in the fourth quarter ballooned the total and sent the game to overtime. Each team makes it out of there with a field goal, and we get our first tie of the season, 40-40. To baseball, the Nats, they closed out game 162 against the Chicago White Sox with an 8-0 loss. Nats produced only 1 hit and seemed pretty eager to get on with their offseason. The Caps, they get the win in the preseason shootout versus the New Jersey Devils. Charlie Lindgren saves 20 of 22, including a 2-on-0 rush with his left pad. Ryan Leonard and Graham Clark, the 2 regulation goal scorers. Caps win 3-2. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
All right. What I liked, big plays, the run offense, Mariota, Debo, McCaffrey, the kicker. They got a takeaway, some big hits on special teams again, a few plays here and there defensively, but the defense was the number one thing in this game on the list of bad. And I'll start there. Too many points, too many yards, too many third down conversions, 3 in a row on that final drive when they just needed one stop to get the ball back. The Falcons, again, I really believe yesterday going into it, I talked about it all week long, they were going to face a much different Atlanta team than the team that they saw on film against the Panthers. The Falcons were the perfect, bettors setup, trap opportunity to play really well and to win. They were really good. And they've got a superstar running back. They've got a very talented tight end. They've got a true number one wide receiver. They've got a pretty decent offensive line. They've got some defensive players that can really play. I love 55. I love Caden Ellis. I like the rookie, the kid from Georgia that they took in the first round, Walker Max. He's good. But look, all of that said, the defense was nowhere near good enough to win a game like that, unless you have Superman on the other side of the ball, and he was not available. The tackling, I'll start there. It just was atrocious yesterday. Far too many missed tackles. This was an emphasis for this team. And, we go back to week 1 when they tackled so well against the Giants. And I remember, we did a call segment and we said, what, did we take away from week 1 that we think will kind of hold up, throughout the course of the season? And I said tackling, because typically if you can tackle in week 1, you're going to end up being a good tackling team. Well, they're not a great tackling team right now. They certainly weren't yesterday. I do think that this is not an issue of players not playing with urgency, with the kind of, level of competitiveness and urgency that Quinn preaches. They're just not getting people to the ground. And look, Bijan Robinson does that to everybody. If you've paid attention to other teams, including the Falcons, he is truly a superstar running back. And he makes people miss all the time in the tightest of spaces. He really does. But, Reeves had an opportunity on that ridiculous 14-yard touchdown run by Bijan. Algier must have broken himself 4 or 5 tackles in this game. They'll have, somebody will have the advanced numbers or, just the missed tackle number somewhere, but there were too many missed tackles yesterday. The defense has had moments of tackling well in the first 4 games and some other moments that have not been very good. Yesterday was not good at all. They gave up way too many explosive plays, way too many chunk plays, 69-yard swing pass out of the backfield to Robinson. Hey, I got an idea. Let's not let Bobby Wagner cover as much anymore. I remember saying the same thing about London Fletcher towards the end of his career. He's so good at so many things. But the thing towards the end of Fletcher's career, and you're starting to see it with Wagner, is don't put him in coverage that much against really good backs and tight ends. It is their liability. It's a liability to the team. That 69-yard chunk play, a 43-yard pass to London, 26 and 22-yard passes to Pitts, a 20-yarder to number 82, Washington, multiple runs of 10 yards or plus, a couple of 14 yards or plus. Too many explosives defensively allowed. You give up too many explosives, often it's because of the tackling. So the two go hand in hand. Also, it goes hand in hand with coverage. Guys, coverage is the biggest issue defensively through 4 games. I can't tell you specifically what it is. I know many of you are convinced that Lattimore can't play. I'm not saying you're wrong, okay? And I don't think he had a good day yesterday. You know who else didn't have a good day? If Lattimore didn't have a good day, I don't think Trey Amos had a good day yesterday either. I'm not sure anybody had a great day in coverage. But my point is, I don't know how much of it is scheme play calling versus players and execution. I don't. if you're about to tell me that, well, they shouldn't be in man the whole time. They shouldn't follow those motions in man. They played a lot of zone yesterday. They played a lot of man from what I could see. They blitzed. They didn't blitz. They zone blitzed. They didn't zone blitz. They're trying a lot of different things. I just don't know if they're the right things. We can sit there and we can watch the games on Sunday and we can see people wide open. We can see Bijan in the slot not even covered on a 3rd and 4. And we can say, well, that something's wrong. But to just say it's a player thing, I think is selling the situation short. I don't know how much of it is players and execution versus scheme and play calling. I would guess, just like most situations, there's his side, her side, and the truth lies somewhere in the middle. And I would bet that is the case here as well. But the bottom line is it's not good enough. Okay? You can't match up, once again, Wagner in coverage over and over again on really good backs and or tight ends. Lattimore cannot be in a situation where they are motioning him and he's not able to play press. Sandra still, I said last week, maybe they need to move him to the outside. And they pull, maybe Lattimore and put Noah I back in, as the nickel back as the slot. Maybe that's coming. I don't know. Sandra still hasn't had a good season. He did have a pick yesterday. I don't know how much credit you give him for that pick. It was a terrible throw. But he had dropped into that area, which made it a tougher throw in that zone. But coverage is the issue right now because pass rush isn't the issue. There have been times, and there were times last year, it's like not enough pass pressure. Although overall for the season, it wasn't bad. Coverage was an issue. They're getting some decent pass rush this year. Coverage is a problem. Yesterday, 3rd down defense. I mean, come on, man. 6 out of 12 and 3 straight on that final drive when they desperately needed a stop. I don't know what they would have done down 7 with the ball. If Jaden had been in the game, I would have guaranteed they would have gone down there and scored. But the way they had played their last few drives, I wanted to see it. I wanted to see him get the ball back down 7. You had the first 3rd and 4 was the scramble by Penix. You had the 3rd and 6, which was Pitts wide open, even after Quan Martin held him for 22 yards. And then that 3rd and 7 was a gut punch at the Washington 37. It's a good throw. It's a great catch by London. Lattimore's on the coverage there again. And it's a shame because they would have trotted out their kicker for a 55-yarder, more likely than not, had that been incomplete. And today's 55-yarder is yesterday's 45-yarder, but maybe you get the ball back down 7. 3 straight 3rd down conversions. By the way, after that 3rd and 7 to London, it's still the ball's at the 28-yard line. You still have a shot there. Maybe if you can get off the field and force a missed field goal. How many block field goals have we seen? But Tyler Algier breaks about 19 tackles and rumbles for 19 yards down to the 8-9 yard line, something like that. Game basically over. The run defense has been better this year. It was not good yesterday. I'll be honest with you. I was shocked at the end of the game that Atlanta had only rushed for in the game 128 yards. Bijan had 17 for 75. I kind of felt like he was on his way to like 150 plus with the way the game started. 4.4 yards per carry is, it's not Krosky Merritt's 5.9 for the season. Bijan is special. He's elite. It was not I don't care what the numbers say. It was not a good day against the run. Their worst day against the run this year. And one of my keys going in was you've got to stop the run and you can't let them be balanced. You can't let them be balanced. And they were. I think their first 36 plays, they put this graphic up, 18 passes, 18 runs. So, the defense wasn't good yesterday. It's been very, very, very premature to discuss this defense after any one of these 4 games as anything definitive yet. The two good performances, and I would even say really good performances, were against teams that were hurting and not very good offensively at home. The two bad performances were against much better offensive teams on the road. I do think the talent's better, especially up front. I think that the secondary, while everyone was raving about it over the summer, Terry wasn't even in camp for them to cover. You just don't know with things like that until you start playing real games. They have given up, I mentioned this in the open, in their two losses, 61 points and 839 yards. That is not great improvement from last year's defense. Long way to go. 13 games left. Again, I think Kinlaw's an upgrade over John Allen by a long shot. I think that they've got, a better overall defensive front. I think their pass rush has been effective, but it's still not a good defense. I don't care what the traditional or even advanced numbers say. It was too small of a sample size through the first 3 games. This will start to, after yesterday, reflect something that's probably more true to what they are. Next thing on the list of things that I didn't like. You know what? I need more time for this. We'll break. We'll come back. I've got Cliff Kingsbury's play calling in the crosshairs. Also, I didn't love the end of game strategy by Quinn, and wasn't really in love with the way he handled the end of the first half. That and more coming up. You can start getting on the phone lines now if you want. We'll start taking calls at around 11:15, 11:20, 301-230-0980. Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980 and the team980.com. I do realize we're having some problems with the Odyssey app. Hopefully we'll get those fixed. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Phone lines are open. The coach will talk later on this afternoon. I would assume some sort of update, but nothing definitive, I would guess, on Jaden Daniels. But all of the reporting yesterday, pregame and even during the game with the announcing crew was all about the idea that Jaden would return Sunday against the Chargers. October is 2 days away, and so will the return of chilly air seeping into your home. That is if you've got old, stuck, or cracked windows. Eliminate annoying drafts once and for all with top quality replacement windows from Window Nation. Window Nation has some of the best replacement windows out there. Their installation crews finish the job in 1 day or less, so you can get back to your daily routines with minimal interruption. Window Nation offers a lifetime warranty on all their windows, so you can relax knowing your home is protected far into the future. During the month of October, when you buy 2 windows, you'll get the next 2 free. There's no limit to how many windows you can replace, and your total price includes 1 day installation. Make no payments for 2 years. That's no monthly payments, no down payment, and no interest until 2027. That's a big deal with the holidays right around the corner. Put an end to your window problems before this beautiful fall weather ends. Call Window Nation today at 866-90-NATION or go to windownation.com. All right, back to my game take. I had just started with the things that were not good from the game, and it's all about defense, number one. But number two, for real quickly, actually, from Lawrence. Lawrence writes, clear coverage issues, too many linebackers in coverage, including your boy Armstrong. Armstrong will drop into coverage every once in a while. There are certain things we, as, I think attentive fans can identify. Wagner in coverage doesn't look like the best idea, as, something you want to do too much of. Lattimore appears to be struggling. Yes. It appears as if there are too many free releases for receivers at the line of scrimmage, especially when they use motion. There was a 3rd and 4 with Bijan in the slot yesterday where it didn't look like anybody was covering him. There are lots of issues, but again, is it scheme, play calling, coaching, in one bucket, or is it players, talent, execution in the other? I bet it's somewhere in between. They got to fix it. Okay. Herbert, Keenan Allen, Ladd McConkey and company, Quentin Johnston, he's having a much better year this year. They've got to get better in that area. Defense, number one on the list of things that all of us, I'm sure, had a problem with yesterday. Number 2 for me is Cliff Kingsbury's play calling. I say this every time I do this because Sonny Jurgensen for years said, stop doing the, you think the play calling was bad. But when you've got 2 of your backs going 14 for 106 and 7.5 yards per carry. As a team, 22 for 147, 6.7 yards per carry. I think that's all that you really need to say, why 33 called pass plays? If you count, by the way, penalties, sacks, and scramble, why 33 called pass plays and 20 called run plays? Why? Like, they weren't behind so much throughout the entire game that they had to desperately down 21-0 start throwing the football. It was, 10-7. It was 17-10. It was 17-13. It was 24-16. Now by the time they got the ball back to 31-24, understood, or 34-24 when they got the ball back down, 34-24, you got to throw there. I just, and sometimes that'll skew some of the numbers. I just didn't love it. I felt kind of like I did it in the Green Bay game, in that you were having a major problem defensively. And then yesterday, there wasn't an issue with pass protection or throwing the football like there was in the Green Bay game. But with the play count and the time of possession kind of doubled up in the first half, I think you wanted to come back and do something a little bit more time consuming. If you go to the first play of the second half, okay, Bill's in the game. He rips off a 16-yard first down run. They go tempo, and they take a deep shot to Lane, which was caught, by the way, but holding on Sinnott. So before you know it, it's 1st and 20, and then after an offensive PI on McCaffrey, it's 1st and 30. They amazingly, overcame the 1st and 30. That was where Mariota on 3rd and 14 scrambled for 22 yards. But you really weren't getting stopped. And by the way, Krusky Merritt and Rodriguez are two of your better players, two of your better skill position players. I'd like to see in the next 4 games, Krusky Merritt's got 29 carries in 4 games. I'd like to see double that in the next 4. And I understand, I said this earlier, that they have some concerns, I'm sure, with his inexperience, especially as a pass protector. Coach him up. You got to have him on the field. If the same issue exists with Rodriguez, coach him up. You need those guys on the field more. You need them carrying the ball more. I think it's a decent run blocking offensive line with the way they've, structured it the last 2 weeks. They didn't go heavy jumbo as much, I don't think, as last week. I'd have to look at the snap count for Trent Scott. They started the game that way. Find the snap count for Trent Scott. I'm going to bet it's not what it was last week. Last week, he was in for about a third of the plays.
Looking right now, Nikki just posted them.
Trent Scott, nine
snaps
in the game out of 57. So, yeah, a lot less of the jumbo 6th offensive lineman in the game than last week, even though they started the game that way. I don't know. To me, they should have been able to run the football. They were bigger than Atlanta was up front. What did you say? I'm sorry, Max.
9 snaps, 16%.
Yeah. So I think that they could have gone to the run more. I felt that way against Green Bay, but Bates was lost, and they felt like they weren't going to be successful doing that. And maybe they would have been right. But here's what's indisputable. The 2 running backs yesterday were averaging a ridiculous 7.5 yards per carry. And these weren't, draws at the end of the first half from your own 20 running the clock out where somebody goes for 30. Okay. These were, first down, second down runs. On the list of things that I didn't like, there were a lot of fumbles in the game, but none of them were lost. Amazingly, Lane muffed 2 punts at the end of the first half. Debo fumbled and recovered it. So they got lucky, that they didn't lose one of those. Atlanta fumbled too. Bijan fumbled on that knockout by Payne, and which, by the way, saved them 4 points because it was 2nd and 1, and it went to 3rd and 7, and they got the stop, one of the, few times that they got a stop on 3rd down, and they forced a field goal. So that was a big play. And then on a punt by Tress Way near the end of the first half, that ball knocked off, one of the Atlanta players, legs, shins, and that was loose for a while. But Lane, 2 muffed punts. That was disappointing because he had not really done that. We had that issue, remember, last year with Zacchaeus a little bit back on punts. So 2 more things on the list of things that I didn't like. So the first is very nitpicky, but I just thought Quinn should have been more aggressive at the end of the first half. Now, when they took over from their own 8-yard line, I would have been fine with him being conservative there. But they got to the 33 in a few plays, and then on a 2nd and 10, they ran McNichols and let the clock run. The ball's at the 35-yard line, the 2nd and 10 run. Come on, man. You got out to the 33 pretty quickly. Let's go for it. This has been his MO. And you've got a quarterback that, for the most part, is making some good decisions and some good throws. I understand you're limited in your offense, of array of weapons. But you covered some 25 yards of ground pretty quickly, and then you dialed it back. I think, he might say, when we got to 2nd and 10 after the first incompletion, we wanted to run the clock. That 2-yard run wasn't intended to be a 2-yard run. We thought we could get 7 or 8, and then we would have gone faster with the ball at the 40-yard line. But once we did that and we were faced with 3rd and 8, they weren't calling a timeout, which was a mistake on their part. We just wanted to go into the locker room down 7, knowing we would get the ball first to start the second half. I understand that thinking, but man, I don't know. He's always been an err on the side of being aggressive, and we've now had, I think, 2 occasions at the end of halves where they've been, uncharacteristically conservative. Then last on the list, they did not need to kick that field goal at the end down 34-24 when they kicked it. Okay. Most of you understand this, and I know a lot of you don't. It's not your thing. You don't follow all this stuff, but down 34-24 with no timeouts left, you need obviously a field goal and a touchdown, right? You're going to have to recover an onside kick, regardless of what the next score is. You'd much rather the next score be a field goal with, 30 seconds or so left in the game, 25 seconds or so left in the game, giving you a legitimate chance to get in field goal range. They had moved the ball up and down the field in the fourth quarter, and they were moving the ball up and down the field again. And for some reason, they clocked it when they reached the Atlanta 24, and they sent Matt Gay out there with 1:29 left. And the purpose of that is, look, if we're going to need a touchdown, we want the most amount of time if we do recover the onside kick. I understand that. But you were in touchdown scoring range. You were 4 yards away from the red zone, and you had them on their heels. I would have gone another 40 seconds, another 5, 6, 7, 8 snaps in the game. Although with the clock running, if it's inbounds, it's going to be far fewer, understood. But call it 3 or 4 snaps, offensive snaps, trying to score a touchdown before I would have sent the field goal kicker out there. You really, when you're down, when you're down 9, 10, or 11 in a game, late in a game, there's so many different scenarios. But basically, if you're in that situation where you have no timeouts and you're below the 2-minute warning and you're going to have to recover an onside kick, if you've got an opportunity to get the touchdown first, which they did based on the context, which was they had moved the ball down the field in the previous drive and the drive prior to that, and there they were moving it down the field again, and they had 1:30 left. 1:30. No, don't kick there. Go get the touchdown. Spend at least another 45 seconds trying to get the touchdown. How many plays is that? It depends on how many plays are inbounds versus out of bounds, completed versus incompleted, penalties versus no penalties. It was just, there are times where you want that kicker out there. Like if you've got less than 3 timeouts left, okay, less than 3, and you're before the 2-minute warning, and you can get a kickoff before the 2-minute warning, forcing them to run a play before the 2-minute warning on offense, giving you a 3rd timeout, you do it there. You certainly do it with 30 seconds or 25 seconds left down 10 so that you ensure you've got time left if you recover an onside kick to at least get into range for a Hail Mary or a touchdown. I would not have kicked with 1:29 left. It was far too early. All right, other observations from the game. I talked about him all week long. I think I've talked about him going back to last year. Bijan Robinson is one of the most mesmerizing players in the league to watch. If you're just a football fan and you can be objective, he is truly a superstar. He is right there with Saquon, with Derrick Henry as runners. He's also an excellent pass catcher. Bijan Robinson has this sick ability to make people miss with unbelievable cut on dime ability. He's got wiggle. He's got the ability to make people never sort of square up and hit him directly. He's got speed, although Reeves made a great play running him down on that pass. He was outstanding in that game yesterday. And their best players had to be, and they were desperate to be. Michael Penix, by the way, Bijan's combined 181 yards was a career high for him. That was actually surprising to me. I would have thought he would have had a $150 and a 75-yard passing day. Michael Penix Jr. was really, really good in the game. He has top 10 arm talent, period. Okay, so did Cam Newton. So did Jamarcus Russell. So did Jeff George. I understand that. Okay. Michael Penix Jr. has top 10 arm talent. He's got a ridiculous, throwing motion. It's such a quick release. And when he sees it and he is decisive, you saw it at Washington, he is really good. I think he's going to be an outstanding NFL quarterback. He was my number 3 quarterback behind Jaden and Caleb in the draft. I liked him a lot more than McCarthy, a lot more than Nix, a lot more. I liked him more than I liked Drake May, and I liked Drake May. But I think Penix Jr. has elite level potential as a passer. He was terrible last week. If they weren't playing our team, I would have really appreciated the resilience for him because he heard it all week. I watched his press conference on Wednesday. It was so impressive. And everything from down there, from the people that cover the team, the players, this kid is self-aware. He's accountable. I think he's going to be a star at the position. And yeah, Washington's defense and coverage issues seem to be easy pickings for quarterbacks with some talent. Penix Jr. was outstanding. Other observations from the game, Raheem Morris just is terrible as a game situation coach. I mean, bottom 4 or 5 in the league. He literally cost his team a playoff berth when they lost here in December with his just abysmal clock management at the end of the half and at the end of the game last year. And he doesn't have a clue. I know Raheem is incredibly well-liked, and he is a motivator. He is a people person. He has no clue how bad he is. They can't stand him down there for this. And I don't understand when Quinn decided to bail at the end of the first half with that run to McNichols on 2nd and 10 that got 2 yards. I don't know why he's not calling timeout. Like, it's the same thing they did last year. They didn't give their team a chance up 14-7 to go up 21-7 in Washington and Landover and instead kicked a field goal. It was pathetic. He just is really, really awful at that. And I don't think he is coachable. Raheem is one of those guys. He's a people guy, but he's got all the answers. Just ask him. They're terrible at that. Ben Sinnott for the second straight week stood out to me as a blocker. There was a play yesterday, a reverse to Debo, where he blocked 2 people. I think he's proven himself here recently to be a good blocker. Of course, he's not a pass target, surprisingly. He also had a couple of penalties yesterday. The Falcons, here's another observation. The Falcons made a PAT after the ball was tipped. I can't see who got a piece of it. Maybe we'll find out who it was. But with all of the kicks that have been blocked around the league, more yesterday, and, and last night, you had a 2-point return on a PAT by the Cowboys. That kick got through, though. Got through from 33 yards out on a PAT after it got deflected at the line of scrimmage. Also, look, this is a two-point conversion analytics thing. I understand having more information is better than having less information. Down 31-16 on the 4th and 3 touchdown pass to Debo, Quinn decided to go for 2 there. They converted it. Look, the conversion rate on 2-point plays is still less than 50% on average in the league. So if you don't get it, it's 31-22. Yes, you have more information. You now need 2 scores. I understand that is valuable to know that. I also think that there is game pressure that exists in an 8-point game for your opponent versus a 9-point game. I wonder if that is factored into that decision. I'm not criticizing him for it. If I was, I would have had him on the list of things I didn't like. I just think that this going for 2 down in that situation, down 15 initially, creates the probability, because 2-point conversions are less than 50-50, that it's going to be a 9-point game and the other team is not going to feel enough game pressure. And I think there's something to score time and associated game pressure and the way the game is played after that. But anyway, just an observation. Your chance now, 301-230-0980. I'll take your calls next.
Lloyd among those there defensively, flagged down. Deep shot. Mariota over the shoulder interception. Xavier Watts.
I think that was on him. I think you got to look that safety off. I don't think the shot there was the right shot, but we'll let the film breakdown analysts get into that one. This from Joey. Joey writes with the subject title, "The regressionists were right. Kevin, there were numerous beat reporters and NFL insiders predicting a major regression to the mean this season, to the point like it seemed like groupthink. I refused to buy into it. I thought it was lazy, but through 4 weeks, I hate to admit it, I think they were right. This team doesn't have enough talent. Last year was a dream, but Quinn ran a soft camp, and that looks like a mistake. Adam Peters clearly missed on too many picks in his first draft. They just don't have the horses. The defense has no plan. Joe Witt Jr. isn't at risk of losing his job in season, but it's pretty clear he's dead man walking and will need to be replaced this offseason. Bobby Wagner is cooked. Luvu is slow to step or two. Lattimore, no comment. Getting Jaden Daniels back is nice, but they scored 68 points in 2 games without him. Scoring points is not the issue. So how much of a difference will he make? They needed Jaden Daniels on defense, and they don't have one. I'm sure I'll get over this in a day or two, but my excitement for this season is already waning. The NFC is too good unless Jaden plays every game the rest of the season at an MVP level. I don't see the math for a playoff spot. This looks like an 8-9 team, unfortunately. The next 2 games are must wins. Looking forward to hearing your take. Joey in Jersey. Thank you, Joey, for that. Yeah, I mean, I would say 4 games is way too early when in 2 of them, your starting quarterback and your MVP from last year and one of the best players in the NFC last year hasn't played in those games. I get your point. They scored 41 against the Raiders. Remember, they had a big punt return, and but the Raiders weren't really that good on that day, and they scored 27 yesterday. Offense wasn't the problem. I get it, but I do think Jaden would have made a difference in yesterday's game. They kicked 4 field goals in the game. Some of that is because of self-infliction. And at the same time, he probably would have made and overcome some of that self-infliction. So, yeah, look, if he had played the last 2 games and they had won yesterday with him and they were 3-1, it would look different. There's a long way to go. I think, last week on Monday, I said I have a real problem with this Atlanta game, and I think it's a dangerous game, and I think they're going to lose this game. Really thought there was a good chance that they would lose it. I actually like our team Sunday against the Chargers if Jaden's back and 100% healthy, which is the only way he should be back. I think this is one of those where the expectations are going to be a bit low, and I think they will be a hungry team to right what happened yesterday. Now, the Chargers are in the same boat after losing to New York, after losing to the Giants, but I actually like our chances to win Sunday in LA. It's not a terrific home field advantage for the Chargers. It's a more neutral environment. I like the chances of a win Sunday, and it's just too early to point to the offseason pundits and say they were right about, by the way, a regression to the mean is not really the way to describe it. Anyway, but thank you for that. Let's go to the phone lines. Actually, before we do that, Max, go ahead. After your big wedding in Ocean City, New Jersey, I'm sure you were a bit groggy, but you did watch the game. What were your big takeaways?
It was, it's hard, man. Playing defense is so hard in the NFL, but these busting coverage, like I said top 3 secondary before the season, and they might be bottom 3. Now, whether that's either coaching and scheme or players on the field, I mean, you said it in the open. It's a little bit too early to tell, but man, it's just disappointing on that back end. Like, the Falcons are good, credit to them, but just all these busting cover. Like I said so many times during that game, how is he so wide open? And it feels like I said that 10 plus times. It's just got to clean it up. Got to stop shooting yourself in the foot on offense and getting these pre-snap penalties and stuff like that. But man, this secondary's got to clean it up. I'm not sure. Everyone's calling for Marshawn Lattimore to be benched. It's it's tough for me to argue against that right now. So yeah, I think we got to do some shifting around in that secondary. That's my take.
All right. Let's get to the phone lines. Let's start with our guy Jason in Laurel. Jason, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. How you doing? Thanks for taking my call.
Sure, Jason.
Just hearing like from the junkies and stuff, I'm kind of blown away that people are like, I think, blowing this loss out of proportion. I'm not happy about it. But I think of the players that were on the field, I would take Atlanta's roster over our roster. And we played well enough to win. We didn't win because of the things, the defense and stuff. But, before this game or before the season, if you told me we would have as many injuries and Jaden wasn't going to play and Terry wasn't going to play, and we were only going to lose to him by 7, I probably would take that. And that's what happened. I think if Jaden played, maybe we could have won. And I do think they made a gamble and lost. Because there were reports that Jaden could have played in the Raiders game if it was a playoff situation. If that was the case, obviously he could have played yesterday, but they decided to sat him and we lost. But I was telling Max this, and I'm curious what you would think of it. I like to play the switch around to sometimes compare teams. If you just switch one position group, you give us their running backs and they take our running backs, we would have smoked them. That team is just more talented. And,
but the problem is, would
I think
Cliff have used our
won.
running backs?
Yeah, well, you tweeted during the game, I hate to be that guy, but I want to run more. I do think we need to run more, and I do think the mentality of the people that are on this team behooves us to run more. And I don't know why we didn't run more in a game where, Jaden. I do think when Jaden's in the game, I think we have probably the ability to run better. But, I don't think it's the end of the world. It's a long season.
Long season.
The one thing that I'm 100% sure of is we need more talent on our roster, especially defensively.
Yeah, thanks for the call. Appreciate that as always, Jason. Back to Joey in Jersey saying the next two are must wins. They're not must wins at this point in the season, but you certainly don't want to be 2-4 after the next two. And after the Chargers, you've got the Bears on Monday night. They've won 2 in a row. By the way, you talk about, revenge mode from the Hail Mary game. They'll come in here ready on Monday night, October 13th. But you just got to play them one at a time, man. I mean, that's so cliche. It's such coach speak. But this league just completely, changes on a dime every 7 days in terms of the team's performances and the way we view these teams on Mondays following a weekend of football. And a week from today, it would not surprise me that we could be talking about an impressive performance by the starting quarterback, and feel really good again about a team that's 3-2 with Chicago at home and a bad defense in Dallas the week after that. Let's go to our guy Frank in Charlotte. Frank, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, man. How you doing?
Sure, good, Frank.
Yes, I kind of agree with the guy from Jersey. I don't know about the mean thing. I don't agree with that, but I think that we have really the origins of it start with teachers, and like I told you last week when I called last week.
You got to get to your point. Your phone's breaking up, man. Sorry, Frank.
Yeah, I'm here.
Your phone isn't great, so just quickly to the point, because I know you've been on hold.
Okay, yeah. I think the defense was, of course, was awful. I don't think that Wagner should be playing 100% of the snaps. I think he should have been.
Yeah, let's move on from Frank. His phone's just not good enough. Let's go to our guy, Aveen. Aveen, thanks. But Frank, yeah, the defense was a problem. And I think all of us can agree that Bobby Wagner's terrific against the run, terrific as a blitzing player, as a pass rusher, but in coverage right now struggling. Aveen, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. I'm going to say a quick positive thing. I'm still somewhat encouraged by the run defense because I think they made enough splash plays, enough minimal yardage gain plays.
They did. They had some of those.
To put the Falcons behind the sticks enough where if we just had more of a competent defense, we would have gotten off the field more. I think those big runs they gave up and, a lot of the missed tackles, those came towards the end of drives. And, when you're worn down and it's demoralizing to give up so many third downs. So that's a quick positive thing. But, you're right. I'm a fan, and I don't know, how much of these guys being wide open is personnel versus scheme. But I watch enough NFL football to see that, the guys we allowed wide open are wide open at a much higher rate than other defenses you watch in the league. And then you see defensive coordinators
Except
around
Dallas.
the league, like what Todd. Yeah, that's true. But you see other defensive coordinators around the league. You see what Todd Bowles is doing with their young secondary. There's not a lot of, name brand corners in the league. You see what the Packers and the Vikings are doing with their defenses, and I couldn't name any of their secondary players, their corners going into the season. See what Indianapolis, Jacksonville, the Chargers are doing with their defenses. So some of this has to fall on coaching, and it seems like some of it is schematic. So I've just been having this intrusive thought, and it's probably not realistic, but I love what Cliff Kingsbury's doing. I'm super impressed by the offense. I love how our run game looks. I think Kingsbury is elite. I think he can be the next, Kyle Shanahan guy in his next spot. And I just had this intrusive thought, I would rather have Jaden paired with Kingsbury for his career than,
Here we
sticking
go. It's
with
the Sean McVay thing.
I know it's a hot take. I know, but
well, I mean, the Sean McVay take
be,
Cooley had when Sean McVay was the tight ends coach. Cooley said he would make McVay the coach and move on from Gruden when McVay was the tight ends coach. No, I know what you're saying. And by the way, I'm impressed with Cliff too, but I think he did not feel the game yesterday. I think when you've got a defense that can't get off the field, you're doubled up in play count, time of possession in the first half, and your two running backs are averaging 7.5 yards per carry. You've got to put it in their gut more than he did.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. It's just sometimes hard to be patient with run game when you're constantly in catch up mode. That's
but it wasn't like massive catch up mode. I think. You can't at the start of a half down 17-10 think you're in massive catch-up mode. And they did after a 16-yard run. They called 3 straight pass plays. And I know that they had to overcome a 1st and 30 at that point. By the way, I think your first point about the run defense, because I just looked this up, and I talked about some of the TFLs that they had yesterday. They had 7 tackles for loss in the game, and just 1 was a sack. So, I mean, Payne, Luvu, Armstrong, Kinlaw, Goldman, who else had one? Lattimore had one. Wagner had one. They did make some plays in the running game. There is no doubt that they did. I think early on, though, it was a gash fest until Payne knocked the ball out of Bijan's hands, which forced that first field goal. Thank you, Aveen, as always. Let's go to my guy Stan in Jersey. Stan, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, how are you?
What's up, Stan?
A lot of things, nothing crazy situationally, but a couple things I think you'll like. First,
he shouldn't have kicked the field goal with 1:30 left.
Obviously, I mean, that goes without saying. We know when you're in that deep, you got to keep going for it. You can't, especially with the way kickers kick nowadays.
Yeah.
But I'll start with a couple things. This game felt like Green Bay all over again from an offensive standpoint. In the Green Bay game, we could not stop or we could not gain a yard on them. And in this game, we weren't going to stop them. So it felt like even though it was a one-score game, we were never going to win this game. We just could not stop them yesterday, and it was a poor defensive effort. A couple other things. Krosky, I called earlier in the summer. I wasn't sure about the backfield situation. Krosky Merritt is your better back. He's more explosive. He needs to play a lot more. Good job by you with the going down from 15 to 9. I've always said this. The intensity from the players, the game pressure, even as a fan, you're only down 1 score. Now, I get when you do get that score and you're down 2 and there's only 3 seconds and you don't get it, you're screwed. And you're like, why didn't we do that earlier? Because you would have known that you needed the 2, or you needed more possessions earlier. But I do think there is something to be said for the intensity of the players, knowing that it's still a 1-score game, the game pressure, all of that.
Let me just say, I'll interject right there. I always have a problem with an 8-point lead being described as a 1-score game when the probability is it's still a 2-score game. But yes, what I was referring to is when they were down 15, he went for the 2 on the 4th down touchdown pass to Debo. And if he had missed it, the 9-point game puts less game pressure on Atlanta. An 8-point game puts more game pressure on Atlanta. And that's my preference. Although I do understand more information is better than less information. But continue.
No,
I'm with you on
I'm
Bill
100%
too. He's
with
got to get more carries.
I'm 100% with you. I think that's I mean, I understand why people don't do it, but I do like the game type pressure, and as a fan, knowing it's still a one-score game if you don't get it. The end of the half. I'm not going to talk about what the call 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 8, 2nd and 8, and they ran it for 2 yards. I get he wants to try to make that the last possession. After the 2-yard gain, he's just trying to make that the last possession of the half. He's no longer even trying to score a touchdown. He's just trying to kick a field goal and walk off. Right?
Yeah, I think the issue with that is you start at your own 8-yard line, and in 3 plays you're out to the 33, and there's still a minute 20 left. At that point, we're going to go score mode. And after an incompletion, they run the ball and let the clock roll. Now, Raheem made a mistake by not calling a timeout. That's the other thing. I mean, maybe he just knew how bad Raheem was at this and knew he wouldn't call a timeout, and he's going to get to the locker room, down 7, getting the ball to start the 3rd quarter. That's why I said it's a bit of a small nit to pick, because maybe he was playing those odds that Raheem was an idiot. But I still think you're out at the 33. Let's go for it.
I agree. I think as soon as that incompletion and then the run, you could tell he was just playing for a walk-off field goal, and he didn't get it, obviously. But here's the other 2 things about this.
Well, punt the ball, he wasn't even really playing. Yes, he was playing for a walk-off field goal because they dropped Mariota back on 3rd and 8. That's true. Yes.
Yeah.
But the clock was rolling at that point.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing about the punt at the end of the half. You're going to love this, and I know you probably scream at your TV all the time. I know I do. When the Skins punted that ball to Atlanta, that Atlanta return man has to fair catch the ball and save the time. As soon as it bounces, this is where I scream at my TV. How do these players not know to get away, and let the clock roll? It's just going to roll until the official blows the whistle. It's going to be 6 seconds. Now, yesterday, it obviously hit the guy in the foot, so it was different. But how do these guys not know to just let it roll? 6 seconds will come off before the official blows the whistle. It drives me nuts.
Because they must get some sort of kudo in the weekly meetings for being the guy that downed the ball, I think. I don't know why. What else you got? I want to get on to other callers.
Okay, two other things. Also, the end of the first half, there's under 10 seconds to go. We're in an all-out rush to block that punt. Why the heck do we field punts? Why do other teams field punts? I never understand it.
Get the returner away. 100%. 100%.
All he can do is muff it.
There's only one thing that can happen if you've got him back there to fair catch is bad. Yes. And why even have a returner back there?
No, just let it bounce around and end the half. It's so
100%.
He's not the only one that does.
No, you're 100%. It's just like with 7 seconds to go from your own 12-yard line. Why does anybody even run a play? Why do you hand the ball off to anybody? Take a knee. It's the so dumbest thing. Yeah.
Last thing, and this is league-wide now. I hate the kickoff. The kickoff needs to just go away, period, and it's got to start 1st and 10 on the 20. You're not avoiding the huge collisions. There was a collision with that guy Kehoe yesterday.
Yeah.
On a kickoff, man. He shouldered a guy. I don't know how either of them got up.
I know.
So don't give me the concussion nonsense. It is way too easy especially with the kickers, as we talked about. First and 10 from the 35. The Eagles pucks had one foul at the end of the half, a 15-yarder. They got 2 yards and kicked a 65-yarder to end the half because you're getting the ball at the 35. You can't do it.
That's the part of it I hate. I'm with you, but I do like that the play is a play now. And by the way, it's an exciting play a lot of the times. But
I agree. It's just it's just too much. Just eliminate it.
Did you see Aubrey last night? Did you see how good Aubrey is at having that ball hit, at about the 2-yard line and go into the end zone?
It was amazing. But also, you can't even play situational football anymore with these kickers of timeouts. Because if there's 18 seconds and one timeout from your own 27, you're going for it.
All right, I got to run. Always good to catch up, Stan. Appreciate it. Let's go to Ralphie in Rockville. Ralphie, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, I'll make this quick. One thing I think that's evident with some players on defense, it doesn't matter what scheme we're in, because regardless, they're going to be horrible. I think Lattimore, he gets beat whether it's zone, man, or when he's pressing on the line. And one thing about him, if you're going to hold, actually commit the holding penalty so you don't give up another 40 yards to Drake London. That was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. And then Quan Martin, to me, Kevin, I don't know what your thoughts on him are. He's not a starting safety, in my opinion. Majority of the time, he looks lost, and he's not interested in tackling. He missed like 5 tackles yesterday.
He missed some tackles yesterday. No doubt.
And Louisville and Wagner can't cover. And like I said last week, I think running backs need to get 20-plus carries. That seems like the winning recipe. If you look at this is what goes into next week. If you want to beat the Chargers, just look what the Giants did. They ran the ball 40-plus times.
Yep, they did.
Stadabu's a monster. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, good call, Ralphie. Appreciate that. Let's go to Rod in Landover. Rod, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Kevin?
Hey, Rod.
Man, that game was extremely disappointing. Not because they lost, but the context of the game going into the game. That even though we knew we wasn't gonna have Jaden or Terry, Atlanta lost 30 to nothing the week before that. Now I know Atlanta's a better team than that, but just knowing they lost 30 to nothing and then came back and put up 34 in this defense, man, it was crazy. I think they need to run Bill more. Bill seemed to be really explosive, and I can't wait to see him and Jaden Daniels side by side. So it seemed like that'll be a good fit for Jaden Daniels and for Bill. But this defense, man, as bad as the defense played, they still had a chance after we scored, and I think we got the 2-point conversion. All we had to do was stop them.
One stop.
And Atlanta picked up 3 third downs on that drive. Three of them.
They did.
It was just unbelievable, man. This defense, it's crazy because I thought this defense, the first 3 weeks, I thought this defense was pretty solid. Atlanta really exposed this defense. This defense, styles make fights, and I think there are certain teams that we're going to play this year that's going to be a bad matchup for this defense. I think
Sunday could be. I think Sunday could be one of those, but I think offensively, you got your stud back, you got your MVP back. Look, I think last week in the NFL means nothing to what this week is going to be. It just is the case every single year. That's why I picked Atlanta, and I thought Atlanta would win this game because they do have talent as well. But it's one game. Defensively, though, the results that they had that were positive were against two struggling and hurt offensive teams on those particular days. That's why there was some caution about being, declaring anything about this defense. I do think the talent up front is better. I think the Kinlaw addition is already proven to be something that is a positive versus what they had last year, but there's a long way to go. Thanks for the call. If you're on hold, stay there. We'll take a few more of your calls, and then we'll get to Ben Standig at noon. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
All right, here's what's happening. It is a misery Monday, September 29th. The Commanders, they fall 34-27 to the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta's quarterback Mike Penix posted a career-high 313 yards and 2 touchdowns despite the concessions being so cheap. The Commanders' defense could not buy a stop at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We go around the NFC East. The Philadelphia Eagles, they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 31-25. Eagles got off to a scorching hot start and fell off a cliff in the second half, not completing a single pass, but they were able to escape with the win in spite of the Bucs' best effort. The Giants, they get their first win of the season over the LA Chargers, 21-18. Malik Neighbors goes down with what has been confirmed as an ACL injury. He will miss the remainder of the season. Jackson Dart had a solid debut, but the Giants defense showed up and showed out, forcing 2 interceptions from quarterback Justin Herbert, and they were certainly the difference in the game. Finally, the Dallas Cowboys took on the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football in the return of standout pass rusher Micah Parsons. An offensive explosion in the fourth quarter ballooned that total and sent the game to overtime. Each team makes out with a field goal. We get our first tie of the season at 40-40. To baseball, Nats close out game 162 against the Chicago White Sox with an 8-0 loss. The Nats produced only 1 hit, seemed pretty eager to get on with their offseason. The Caps, they get the win at a preseason shootout versus the New Jersey Devils. Charlie Lindgren saves 20 of 22 shots, including a 2-on-0 rush with his left pad. Ryan Leonard and Graham Clark, the 2 regulation goal scorers. The Caps win 3-2 again in the shootout. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
All right, let's get some calls in here. Try to move quickly. Let's go Joe Springfield. Joe, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Doing.
What's up, Joe?
All right, so instead of giving a likes, I'm going to give a lot of didn't likes, and I leave you with a question. Didn't like the defense. I mean, it feels like, we play better at home when on the road so far this season. We come out with a fire.
Well, the opponents
at
home have been easier.
I agree with you, but there's always even difference. But yeah, I agree. I mean, we played some mediocre teams at home the first 4 weeks of the season.
A couple of bad teams,
Two
actually,
about,
when we played them.
Yeah. So the question's about why was there not a pass interference called when Mario threw that deep pass to Chris Moore? Because to me, it looked like he was being held. I understand that we got away with that. We got those penalties, but the fact that could have easily changed the game completely.
Yeah.
I mean, it does happen.
I should have pointed that out.
Marcus
Good one.
Mariota.
Yeah.
And Mariota, when he got sacked, it looked like he got grabbed by the face mask as well as he was adjusting his helmet when he got back up. That should have been called too. So my final question, he's been inactive for the first 2 weeks since we signed him. Is Preston Smith not healthy, or is he going to see the field at all? Because I'm not saying he would make a difference on the defense. Defense will still struggle. But why has he been inactive these first 2 weeks? Because you've seen what he can do. I mean, I'm sure he would love to get back on the field. So take care, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Pass rush hasn't been the issue this year. We'll see what Preston Smith has, and maybe he needs 2 weeks to get up to speed. Dave in Raleigh. Dave, go ahead. Dave, go ahead, man. Let's put Dave back on hold. Let's go to Jeremy in Baltimore. Jeremy, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Thanks. I thought that caller did a nice job. I think we're giving Dan Quinn too much credit here. I have major problems with things that he decided to do that actually worked out, but just because the result worked doesn't make it the right decision. There's no reason to go for 2 there. You don't get it. The game is completely over. Am I wrong?
I don't like that. The analytics say more information is better than less information. The earlier you get it, it's better. I think game context and game pressure should be taken into consideration. I prefer 31-23. But at the same time, I don't call 31-23, a legitimate one-score game, because the probability is that it's actually a two-score game, because the conversion rate is less than 50% on average. So, yeah, I didn't love that, but that's not why they lost the game.
No.
They made that.
I agree. We lost because our defense was terrible. I'm shocked that you don't think that our pass rush was a problem yesterday. We got 1 pressure and 1 sack. I think that
it was more than one pressure. I think it's more than 1 pressure, but certainly not the number of pressures from the first 3 weeks. You're right. I think overall coverage was a much bigger issue yesterday than anything else. There seemed to be people once again running wide open.
Here's my biggest gripe.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels masked so many problems with our team last year that we're in year 2 of a rebuild. I don't remember a team that we've faced over the past year and 4 months where we, from a talent perspective, could compete. We look small and slow and old. And yeah, we did amazing things last year, but that was because of number 5. Like, this team is way behind other teams. And that's okay. But our philosophy has to be that, like, our defense sucks. So, like, we have to keep the ball. And, like, we have to be on 3rd and 6 running the ball so that it's 4th and 2 and going for it, because we need to be that aggressive. We're not a great team. We're not even a very good team. So we have to be advantageous in the way we approach things. I don't know that our coaching staff truly understands or believes that. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. There's no doubt that this roster, look, a lot of rosters don't have depth and, depth at every position and can overcome, a slew of injuries at key positions. Most teams can't. The slow part of it, certainly in coverage with guys like Bobby Wagner, it looks slow. But I think the effort and the speed and the urgency isn't the issue. I think there's something else going on here, especially in coverage, that just seems to be maybe an execution and talent standpoint, but I think that the coaching and the scheme and the play calling may have something to do with it as well. Let's go to our guy Billy in Chantilly. Billy, go ahead.
Kevin, good morning.
What's
I
up,
think
Billy?
The first thing we ought to do is congratulate the USA for winning the Ryder Cup. That was an amazing performance.
I'll tell you what, man, it was a compelling watch all weekend long. But the Euros, they just do that event better. I can't explain it, but they do it better.
It's another hoax, and you'll find out later, probably this week, the PGA of America will announce the USA actually won that Ryder Cup game match, the Samuel Ryder Cup match. It's another hoax NFL game, too. And I expect that Major Tuddy will make an announcement on Wednesday that we actually won that game and the score is going to be reversed. And if it's not reversed and the Commanders aren't reinstated at 4-0, I think we should sue the NFL as fans.
Okay. Do you have anything of substance for the day after a game?
Yeah, this is all on Adam Peters. I'm sorry. This is all on Adam Peters. You should have brought Terry in at the beginning of the season. They would have had the offense in step. Jaden wouldn't have got hurt. We'd be 4-0 right now. This is all on Adam Peters.
He wanted to bring him in early in the season. The other side was delusional.
Okay.
Terry should have come in earlier. Terry and his agent should have gotten real about their value and appreciated that the team was even offering an extension and come back.
Here's the delusion, Kevin. The Commanders football team had none of the power. Terry had all of the power.
Oh, really? How'd that work out for him?
Because we're 2-2 right now, and our offense stinks, and our quarterback's hurt, and Terry's hurt, and the season is on the brink.
It's not on
the
the
brink
brink
right now.
It's not on the brink. And
I'm on the brink.
I'm
always on the brink.
You can't predict injury. You're always on the brink. That's true. I got to run. I'm up against a hard out. Colby, Kent, Bones, everybody else on hold. I'm sorry. Maybe we'll come back to calls at the very end of the show. Ben Standig next. Ben Standig's with us every Monday and Friday at 12 noon on this show as our Washington Commanders insider. He writes a Substack report and column called Last Man Standing. He's got a podcast by the same name, and you can follow him on X on Twitter at Ben Standig. Let's start where we always start. Your big takeaways from the 34-27 loss in Atlanta. Do we have Ben?
We do.
Yep. Well, it'd be nice if I could hear him.
It would. Give me 1 sec.
Yeah, let's try to get Ben into a spot where it makes sense. By the way, one of the callers mentioned, and I didn't mention that. Yeah, there was a face mask on that first drive of the second half. Caden Ellis got away with a face mask on that 2nd and 14 when Marcus Mariota unloaded it incomplete, and then. It did look like Hughes interfered with Chris Moore on a 3rd and 7 on that drive before the Matt Gay 52-yard field goal that made it 17-13. I thought those were 2 missed calls. Do we have Ben? Okay, so go ahead. Give me your big thoughts about yesterday's loss in Atlanta.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, if we want to talk a certain reality of the world, right, they were missing a lot of players on offense, and, that side of the ball was, a little up and down, but I thought, they competed, and, to put up 27 points when you had, all the pieces they were missing and who they had out there, I think that's pretty credible. But of course, that's not really the story almost on any level, because all that could go away by next week. The story is what's going to continue, and that's the defense. And, it's now 4 weeks into the season, and it's been 2 games where they've looked really good against 2 teams that were just, were disjointed at best and just weren't, up to snuff. And the defense looked poor in 2 games where the opponents either, were just, fundamentally really good, and they have playmakers, as Atlanta certainly did yesterday. And, we can all say it's early, and the team certainly did. And it's a justifiable point, of course, but it's not just 4 games. It's 4 games plus what we saw last year. And, it's still becoming too much of they can't get stops when they have to. They're not making as big plays when they have to. And, I think it's definitely concerning. And then there's some individual aspects of it that we can discuss as well. But I just think as a broad statement, the defense has just, in the 2 games with opponents that you would say, okay, this is like a legitimate test, they haven't been there at all. And, again, look, I think missing Will Harris was a legitimate thing. I think he was doing a lot for them back there in the secondary in terms of coverage and just, communication and things like that. And, Dietrich Wise, another one they lost, and he's big for the run game. But, this was the first also real running back they faced who could hit the perimeter. And obviously Bijan's what we argue with the best running back in football, but he torched them all day long, similar to how Saquon Barkley did and others did last year. So I think that's the part that's, distressing. Again, it's not that the season's over. They could go back and win in LA this weekend, all these things, but 4 games in, it's just too many signs of what we saw last year for me to be like, just brush it off. It's like, well, it was just a game, not a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the overarching takeaway is, 839 yards and 61 points against the 2 teams they have faced that were capable offensively. And they're not even the best 2 teams they will face offensively. They still play teams like Detroit. Kansas City's getting healthier and look great on offense. Dallas is the number 1 yardage offensive team in the league. The team they're going to face this week has offensive capability. And of course, I'm not even mentioning the Eagles, which come late in the season twice in the final 3 weeks. And that's why you got to be careful, as you and I have talked about together, and we've talked about individually, taking the Giant and Raider game and extrapolating it at all about what this defense is. Now, I will say, I do think it has more talent up front, and I think it's better up front than it was last year. But on the back end, there seems to be major issues. And I would ask you, because I admittedly, I don't know what the answer is. If it's more coaching, scheme, play calling, or more talent, execution by players. My guess is it's probably somewhere in the middle. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's the question. I'm sure you got the same thing in your Twitter timelines. Get rid of Joe Witt, make changes on that side of things, and it's always simple to say that, of course. And sometimes this is a simple decision that the organizations make. I'm not saying that's happening here. I just mean it's easier to fire the coach than the players. But yeah, I'm with you. It's hard to know exactly what's going on. I mean, for example, like Bobby Wagner is a hell of a player, right? We all get that. The great instincts. Just last week, he had 2 sacks, all that. Yeah. But when you get him, what you could see, Atlanta's like trying to isolate him in coverage, once with Kyle Pitts, once with Bijan Robinson, and like that's just not a fair fight. So what do? Bobby Wagner plays every snap for your defense. He's the signal caller. He's the glue to the whole thing that connects the front and the back. What do? Take him off? Even if you do, who are you putting in? Jordan McGee didn't even play a snap this game. to put out an extra defensive back, right? To say that's your plan. Well, that's what they tried to get away from this going into this year from last year when they played so much nickel. So again, I'm not putting it on him. I'm just saying that's one example as to I don't know what the answer is. And there's also, Marshawn Lattimore, he's not living up to the hype of being, a top end cornerback, especially one that you made the trade for. And, the pass rush, has had good moments this season, but, one sack yesterday. For the most part, Michael Penix looked pretty comfortable back there. Where's that? We know they don't have necessarily elite talent up front, but they have, like you said, they have improved depth, but that didn't translate yesterday. So it's not this isn't an excuse. It's kind of just to say, look, this level of where the football is, I'm just being honest, like I can't compete with what the actual football people know. So if they can't figure this out, it's hard, I think, for the rest of us to just be like, oh, fire this guy, bench that guy. But it does feel like something has to give.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, there are things we can identify as fans that are pretty obvious, like Bobby Wagner shouldn't be isolated in coverage against wide receivers, tight ends, or running backs that can catch the ball. I said at the beginning, it's exactly the same conversation we had about London Fletcher towards the end of his career. London was still unbelievably, solid against the run and when they sent him after a quarterback, but you saw teams searching for him when he was out there in coverage, and you're seeing that with Wagner. As far as Lattimore goes, he's struggled, but has he struggled because he's not playing more press? Should he be playing more press? Should they, swap, the picks or the motion? These are things that are really hard to know for sure, but there seems like a few obvious ones. And yeah, I mean, going back 4 weeks, it was like this team's biggest mystery is, did they get any better on defense? Through 4 games, you might say that the talent up front is better, but the overall output isn't. And that means they need Jaden to be Superman a lot of these weeks, and he's missed the last 2 games. But they were able to win one, and Marcus played well. So let's move on to what's next with Jaden. A lot of the pregame reporting suggests that he is ready to go and will return against the Chargers Sunday. Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so much hearing, but it's just, looking at the landscape. Again, the week before, week 3, he only got in a limited practice at the end of the week, and it was pretty clear that he wasn't really that close there. Whereas last week, the first 2 days were limited practices. We saw him on the field doing some work. He said he was fine, which, is obviously take that with a grain of salt when the player says that. But okay, he's saying that. At least it felt like there was a more of a possibility that he could, get closer to that. So yeah, I think you would think that there would be a much stronger chance for him to be able to go this week now that they've given him that rest for the last 2 weeks. So I would think there's a pretty decent chance. Again, this week, if Wednesday or no later than Thursday he's practicing in full, then I think you can feel pretty good. If it's still limited, then it'll just be, whatever decisions the doctors have been making the last couple of weeks as to why they've said he can't go.
Talking to Ben Standig, it looked like, unless you help me with more people, that John Baptiste was the only injury from yesterday's game. Is that accurate? And what kind of injury does he have?
As far as I know, that's the accurate deal. He has a pec injury. Sounds like it could be one that requires missing some games. Beyond that, who's to say? Obviously John Allen last year was in theory a season-ending one, and he was out for several weeks, but was able to return at the end of the year. So, even if they say IR, we'll have to, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, that would be just another depth play there. I mean, they did sign Preston Smith, as we know, a couple weeks ago. He's yet to play, which is reasonable considering he wasn't in the training camp or anything along those lines. But at least now they have him if in fact Baptiste is out for some time. So there's that. But that's how they that other defensive end spot opposite Dorrance Armstrong. How they manage that is going to be interesting. Jacob Martin is somebody that has stood out to the coaching staff since the summer. But he's not like a bigger run guy. He's more of a pass rush guy. I know that Witt said he could set the edge, but he's just not physically a bigger guy. So yeah, I mean, to lose another body, again, football injuries happen. They're not the only team, obviously, but that would be tough. To at a position where, or with a group that it's more about depth than the individuals, to lose anybody is notable.
Just finishing up the injury talk. Do you have any gut feel on Terry and then on Bates and Noah Brown for Sunday in LA?
Yeah, not a ton. I mean, the Bates and Brown part, with these groin injuries, and there's a little bit more than just that. It's always tricky with these types of soft tissue injuries. How it can linger, and it can become more problematic if you rush it. So we'll have to see. They haven't. Unlike with Jaden, they've done nothing practice-wise the last couple of weeks, so it would be hard to sit here and say, boy, you feel pretty good about them. The Terry one is interesting. It's been kind of all over the map. When you hear that he supposedly wasn't having surgery, meaning that was on the table, you think, oh, well, maybe he's going to be out a few weeks. There's just some discrepancy here. What's going on? But I've also heard he could be back this week. So, again, it's hard to know. He wasn't at practice at all last week. And I talked about this maybe with you, but on my podcast for sure. Like, the whole thing last week was very odd, just the way the information was being communicated. And maybe I wouldn't think it was so odd, except that, we just had the summer that we had with him and having a contract dispute and all that. So I don't know what to make of.
Well,
all that.
Tell me what your gut tells you about why it was odd last week.
Well, I mean, like, there's no reason for the team to say anything, right? I mean, why? As we have seen, they're not exactly loose lips over there. And then, what's the point of saying that their guy could need, that they're even debating surgery or like the talk of second opinions? I know Dan Quinn said that's common, and that's fine. It just doesn't, why is it being discussed unless? Like, it wasn't like an obvious injury, right? It's not like, I mean, we knew he went out of the game, but it wasn't like he was like writhing on the ground in pain. So it's, they could have said nothing other than he's missing practice and he's got it, just like with Bates or Noah Brown. We're not hearing about them possibly discussing surgery or anything, right? And different injuries, I get that. But so then it's like, then it comes out that like he's getting a second opinion, very specifically this one surgeon who is, I guess, if you go to this guy, it typically means, as often the case, like with Dr. Andrews as well, things like that. If you're going to this guy, it probably means you're getting surgery, but now he's not getting surgery. I don't know. It just is like, why are we saying all these things and then not? What is the point of it other than to maybe say, hey, the guy is battling through something and he's going to play through it, even though like they're sort of hyping up that. I don't know, but this is the problem also when you have these contract issues. It now leads to the conspiracy theories a bit more, and that's where you start to get in some trouble.
No doubt. If he's under contract for 3 more years and there's no off-season drama, this is not even a thing. But we know that that's not the case, and we know that it was contentious, and we know that more likely than not, he and his agent probably aren't thrilled with the way it ended. But we'll leave it at that. Defense was obviously, number one on the list. I actually believe Atlanta played very well offensively too. Their players, especially their star, Bijan Robinson, and they're very good. True number one in Drake London was outstanding in the game, and Penix was great. But the defense was a problem. But I also just, for a second loss on the season, I get the Bates missing in Green Bay. Your 2 running backs on 14 carries averaged 7.5 yards per carry. I know for Chris Rodriguez, that was one big chunk run. Right. I'd like to see the running backs, especially in context with your defense can't get off the field. You've been doubled up in time of possession, in play count in the first half. Why do you think Cliff hesitates leaning on the run more?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's almost like there's a plan going into the year. This is what we want to do. And despite some of the obvious, missing pieces, it's like he's trying to not change who they are, their identity. They're trying to just, keep things going the same. So they did that. I mean, it'd be one thing if they were averaging what they averaged on the ground, like you said, but you've got Terry out there, you've got, along with Debo, you've got Noah Brown, but they don't have that. I mean, Chris Moore was in there for 70% of the offensive snaps yesterday and had 0 catches. Luke McCaffrey got a touchdown. It was great, but, I still think there's questions there. And Jalen Lane, he was on the verge of having a much bigger day statistically than he did, but, ultimately it didn't quite work out. There's no reason to lean into that group. You should be leaning into the thing that's working, like you said. And, Bill, had some good runs. But it's also like, I also think they're just still trying to figure out what to do with the running back. I mean, I don't know if you saw the snaps yet. Rodriguez and Krosky-Merritt played the exact same number of snaps, and McNichols played 1 less. I mean, that is the definition of a committee of like.
Yeah, I saw that. I just, if the concern with the 2 younger backs, the better runners, in my opinion, and the guys that should be getting double-digit carries a game, and maybe one of them the large majority of double-digit carries, if the issue is you don't trust them in pass pro, you better coach them up quickly because they need to be on the field more and they need to touch the ball as runners more. I just think that is a strength right now for this offense, especially with the receivers down, like you said, and they did not take advantage of having a bigger team than Atlanta in the trenches offensively and an opportunity to dominate, time of possession and play count with more emphasis on the run. Of course, they probably have 15 reasons why I'm an idiot for saying that, but I just point to 14 carries, 7.5 yards per carry.
Yeah, no, I wrote about this, once Eckler went out, that, in terms of specifically with Bill, that, hey, maybe he isn't ready in certain areas and all that, but like, it doesn't matter right now. You don't have, in terms of playmaking, in terms of the ability. I mean, again, go back to what the whole point of sort of this offseason was: find guys who could, make chunk gains out of the backfield. That's part of the reason why they moved on from Brian Robinson. So, like, to then not lean into that more. Again, I'm not saying the Bills should be getting 15 carries a game, but like you said, between he and Rodriguez, at least, maybe they could get a few more looks, because again, from where this team is right now, again, this is before Terry McLaurin was out. Now it's just like, okay, where are you getting these opportunities? And it just feels like that would be something I would lean into. And also, just I understand that these guys practice and it's the next man up, but when you're missing this many guys, at some point, like, it feels like this maybe should like dial back. I'm not saying that Cliff was like going nuts yesterday at all with his creativity with play calls, but sometimes it's like, hey, maybe we should just, like, what are the basics here? Let's run the football, fewer moving parts, so to speak. And I know I'm being overly simplistic with the run game, but, in general, and just focus on that, control the clock, that this way, we keep Atlanta, especially with the way they were going with their playmakers, keep them off the field. The defense is struggling, do that. But yeah, like you said, they didn't really do that. And, it is a little confusing, but again, I think maybe it's different if it's Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler out there as opposed to, 2 guys who just are
maybe
inexperienced.
But I've seen enough of Rodriguez and now enough of Bill to know that they're talented runners. I think Krosky-Merritt has real legit talent now that we've seen it in real games. And unfortunately, in 4 games, he's got 29 total carries, 172 yards. He's averaging 5.9 yards per touch. It's time to get him more touches. I'd say the same thing about Rodriguez. I think Rodriguez is solid, especially yesterday. Context is everything. I mean, score wasn't completely out of control until, they got down 31-16. I think I really like Cliff. I love Cliff. I think he is creative. I think they do so many good things, but I think sometimes in game, you got to feel it a little bit more. And they could have, it seemed to me, kept their defense off the field a little bit more by running it more. All right, what else do you have? What else is on your list of things that you wanted to talk about?
Well, just to your point, though, to lean back into that, in week 3 against the Raiders, what do they do? Obviously, they got, the great kick return to help start that game. But the first 4 runs were all Chris Rodriguez and up the middle. And the point was to establish, hey, we're going to be physical today. What did they do yesterday? The first play was the end around with Deebo Samuel. Now, I don't know if that's because they're thinking Atlanta is looking for the Chris Rodriguez, so let's give them on the outside. I don't know. Then the next play, Mariota gets sacked, and all of a sudden, you're in a hole and you're 3 and out, and Atlanta scores again. So, again, it's too easy to say, well, if they run the ball to Chris Rodriguez, they don't fall behind by 10 points. I'm not saying that, but there is something to be said for what are we trying to accomplish here? And it just felt like that opening drive. It's like they were trying to accomplish something that just the week before they specifically were trying to do. And I don't know why you would have gone away from that when you were still without key pieces and missing even more. Like, you needed to establish that physicality, and we're going to be able to move the ball on the ground. And like you said, it felt like mentally they got away from it a little bit.
Yeah, look, the person listening that would push back would say, you do realize they're the number 2 rush offense in the league. They're number 2 in average yards per carry. And I would say, yeah, but they're 18th in rushing attempts. So why not, instead of being number 2, being number 1 in the league and keeping your defense off the field a little bit more? But what do we know? The Green Bay game, I get it. They probably thought it wasn't going to work anyway without Bates in the game. They weren't prepared with a Trent Scott to play, more of that, jumbo 6th offensive lineman. They didn't play it a lot yesterday. They did early. But yeah, look, questioning play calling is always a dicey thing. But I'd like to see both Rodriguez and Krosky-Merritt get more carries, especially in a favorable matchup, which I thought they had yesterday to run the football. All right, thanks. Talk to you later.
Of course. Thanks, man. See you.
Ben Standig, everybody, at Ben Standig on X and on Twitter. We'll go around the NFL, another ridiculously entertaining slate of games. We'll try to hit the big ones when we come back.